Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Entrepreneurship is a key pillar of the Chamber's Equality of Opportunity initiative that was launched in June. Our continuing series on minority access to capital is a chance to shine a spotlight on serious policy thinkers and doers in this area. Through this dialogue, we are working to develop a bipartisan agenda to unlock capital for Black entrepreneurs as one tool to resolve the issues of racial inequity. Our guest today is Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. Senator Scott has a uniquely American story. Born in poverty and raised in a single-parent household, his mother worked 16-hour days to provide for Tim and his brother. After almost flunking out of high school, Tim turned his life around through the help of a mentor. Tim went on to become a successful small business owner, served on the Charleston County Council, South Carolina Legislature, and U.S. House of Representatives. Senator Scott has represented South Carolina in the United States Senate since 2013. Senator Scott has launched the Opportunity Agenda, a legislative package to help families and children trapped in poverty. Senator Scott, welcome and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. It's certainly exciting to speak to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and all your fans, to include me as one of them.
Thank you. And I like this. I like this opportunity as well. I get to sort of turn the table because normally when I see you, I'm testifying at Senate banking. So you're asking me the questions. Now I could be the questioner.
I was hoping that I was very kind to you during all those appearances that you had in the banking committee. So now I'm nervous.
No. You've always been stellar.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Scott, the Chamber back in June launched its Equality of Opportunity initiative to develop and advance data-driven business and policy solutions to bridge opportunity gaps and ensure that minorities, particularly Black Americans, have greater opportunities to succeed. This, of course, includes increasing access to capital for minority-owned businesses. The Capital Markets Group here at the Chamber is leading the effort in this track, and we know that there's a role for both the private and public sector to play. And we're certainly going to talk about that today. From your period of public service starting back in 1996, back when you were in the Charleston County Council, how have you seen that narrative and how have you seen those issues change?
Well, I'll say this. Thank you for having me again. And certainly since 1995, 1996, the issues have been better framed. And frankly, more people now than ever before are leaning in towards the solutions. And one of the things that I noted that you said was the quality of opportunity, not the quality of the outcome. And that's a very important distinction. And one of the things I've focused on since my early days on county council was trying to improve access to opportunity, access to the American dream. And now more than ever, I see a lot of partners joining the team, leading from the front. That was not the case in 1995 and 1996. As I was getting started. Now, people really appreciate the importance of diversifying their workforce, helping small businesses establish and succeed. If the momentum that we're seeing today continues, we will be talking about the greatest American century in the history of our country and one of the greatest centuries in all of the world, in world history, as we work together. And that's just something that I'm excited about. And frankly, I'm thankful that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is leading the charge on really important issues around access to capital, access to credit, and developing the type of businesses that will have the multi-generational positive impact.
Senator, your life experience provides a unique perspective, unlike many of your colleagues. So when you start to talk about increasing opportunity for all Americans, people on both sides of the aisle stop to listen. Earlier this year, the Citigroup released a study that showed that if we close the racial gaps in education, housing, wages, and lending, we would see an increase in GDP of $5 trillion over the next 5 years. Your opportunity agenda was founded on the principle that all Americans, as you just mentioned, should have the opportunity to succeed. And your agenda covers a lot of issues. It stitches together solutions such as opportunity zones, quality education, bridging the wealth gap, empowering an innovative economy, but you also bring into it police and criminal justice reform. We here at the Chamber followed your lead and recognize that opportunity, it's about an ecosystem. It's not a singular issue. So what do you think is important to address issues such as increased access to capital for minority-owned businesses? And how do you also include something like police and criminal justice reform? And how do you deal with those issues simultaneously?
Well, Tom, those are really complicated issues, and they are very different issues. But the one underlying theme on all the issues that we focus on is access to opportunity. And frankly, the foundation of access to opportunity in America is the notion of fairness. Americans are really a people driven by fairness and access. And when you think about our criminal justice system, we want that system to be as fair as humanly possible. And so addressing issues like criminal justice reform and police reform without demonizing police officers is a very important plank in building towards a more fair America, a more fair society. And then you think about issues of access to capital and to credit. That creates opportunity for small businesses to start. I think about back in the days when I was starting my business in late 1998, I thought my 8-year-old Nissan 240 SX could be used as an asset. Now, my bank laughed me out of the doors, but someone took the time to sit down with me. A guy named Tom Anderson at Bank of America in Charleston, South Carolina, took the time to sit down with me and work through what a business plan looked like and what I needed to do in order to be successful. He challenged me. And it's that type of diversity of issues that when you bring them together, you start forming a foundation on opportunity defined by access and fairness. We ought not make our nation less fair by focusing in a way that improves the outcome of one group at the detriment of another group. We don't believe in the fact that the pie can't grow. We know the pie is growing. It grows every single day. And the question is, are we now leaning in such a way that in many facets of our society, we are addressing some of the social ills that we literally just did not address before? And the answer is yes, we are. We're doing better than ever, and we still have a long way to go. And so from police reform to criminal justice reform to economic access to opportunity, which defines credit and capital, we've done a really good job of focusing on the issues that will change our nation in a positive way.
Now, Senator, we're not going to know until January, but there's a good chance we're going to have divided government after the Georgia runoffs. So if we're going to have divided government in 2021 and 2022, are you concerned that that situation is going to dilute progress? Do you see that as possibly an opportunity? How are you going to work with your colleagues to advance the opportunity agenda in such a situation?
Well, Tom, I think you are wise to have asked a question, and that's in that way really important because the president has not conceded the election yet. So there's going to be a little bit of a road left that we're going to have to walk down before we get to the final conclusion of what to some is obvious and to others is not. So in a divided government, we're going to have divided government. Frankly, the House is controlled by the Democrats and the Senate is controlled by the Republicans. That means we're already in divided government. I have found reasons to be optimistic in what happens next in this nation. After the failure of the police reform in the Senate, not a single Democrat wanted to even move the discussion forward because they were afraid of the impact on the elections. The House Democrats were eager to start the conversation and to continue the conversation. So in a bicameral, bipartisan fashion, members of the House Democrat Conference, including folks like Karen Bass, the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, had daily and weekly conversations with me over several weeks now, trying to find a path forward and to convince colleagues in the Senate to take police reform as a serious issue that can save lives now. It's that kind of bipartisan attitude from Karen and so many others that I respect and appreciate. It's that kind of attitude that will allow for us to tackle some of the issues around opportunity zones and making them better, around education and access to education. You look at the pandemic, what we need without any question is the ability to focus on going back to the school that you were in before the pandemic. It's the expansion of the MBDAs, the Minority Business Development Agencies, and the centers, using HBCUs as hubs in rural communities so that we can have access to opportunity spread very quickly. And those are bipartisan issues, frankly. From opportunity zones to my work on HBCUs to criminal justice reform and police reform, all those are bipartisan wins. One of the things I focus on in my opportunity agenda is getting things done and not just making a good point. That requires bipartisan coalition for every single major piece of my agenda.
Senator, you mentioned MBDAs, and I want to talk about your bill, Reaching America's Rural Minority Business Act of 2020.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, what that bill would do is it would authorize a minority business development agency within the Department of Commerce to establish up to 10 business centers at historically Black colleges and universities to serve rural and underserved communities. Currently, MDBAs and their existing minority business centers are concentrated really in select urban areas in 18 states, leaving big portions of the country without easy access to their services. Why is this bill important, and how is it going to positively increase the equality of opportunity for minority-owned businesses?
Well, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that I think there's three major keys to success. Number one is having a strong business plan. Number two, having access to the resources that are necessary. And number three, knowing your market. By having more MBDAs or MBDCs located around the country, especially in the rural areas, you'll bring the expertise to those would-be entrepreneurs, and you'll better equip them for success. When that happens, the multiplier effect in the rural communities explodes. You'll see for every job created by a small business, you could see two more jobs created by other small businesses. So when you have a large business locate in a rural area, you start seeing the multiplier effect go from 2 to 2.5 to 3 to 3.5. I mean, so there's real opportunities there. So I hope to use our legislation to promote and encourage the kind of expertise necessary so that the business plans and the vision of entrepreneurs starts to see some meat on the bones, and then access to the resources will help drive that business to success. And then knowing your community and your culture, that will allow for you to grow it significantly. So I think that's going to happen. I'm excited about where we are, and certainly the utilization of MBDAs through HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, will be a springboard for more success for so many of our businesses.
Senator, are there other legislative priorities that you're looking for in 2021 that you can share with us?
Absolutely. I think we're obviously going to continue on the Opportunity Society platform, with access being the key word. We're focusing on education reform. This is a really important part of it. Education reform and workforce development go hand in hand, or like wet and water. They're inseparable. You get one, you get the other. And so if we're going to make sure that we have the highest quality workforce the world's ever seen, we're going to have to focus on K through 12. I like the concept of SHOP. If you guys you may not be old enough, Tom, to remember SHOP in your school, but we had SHOP in my high school when I was. You remember those days too?
Oh, yes, I do.
And so, we're working on things like bringing SHOP back. We're also working on the apprenticeship model that's been so successful in Germany and in states around the country, states like South Carolina, where we've used it effectively. So we're going to do everything in our power as we head into the gig economy to provide the resources necessary to grow our business successes. And then to look at the technological economy that's coming, the gig economy that's really here. We need to make sure that our workers are trained for that gig economy, which means they may have more employers, they may spend more time as a 1099. It's going to morph in a dramatically different way. That's going to lead to the type of success that we've all been hoping and praying for. And frankly, the technology will bring with it fintech lenders, where you're going to have more folks in the fintech space or footprint providing access to credit and capital. And that's going to encourage and promote more small businesses, more minority businesses, and more success. And that, to me, the definition of success is having more employees who have careers and not just jobs.
And, Senator, we've talked a lot about what Congress can do to help increase the equality of opportunity. But what role do you see regulatory agencies such as the Securities and Exchange Commission playing to help in that effort as well?
The SEC, we had a hearing yesterday with Jay Clayton, and I thanked him for his approach towards simplifying some of the prospectus so that we're using common everyday language so that folks who are, I called it Mr. and Mrs. 401k, that they're able to understand and appreciate the investments that are happening within their accounts. I also talked with him the day before yesterday on his focus on creating access to more resources so that more businesses succeed. Things like crowdfunding and finding ways to put more capital on the streets. Jay has been a great Chairman Clayton has been a great champion in that direction. He and I have grown fond of one another from a professional perspective, and we are seeing a lot of success because of his leadership. And frankly, as you watch the changing demographics in who's investing, we're starting to see more minority households have portfolios. The average portfolio in America is around $40,000, and one of and only half of households have a portfolio at all. That number is about $18,000 in the African American community and Hispanic community. So we're seeing a lot of opportunities to get more invested in the equities of our country, and that's a great thing. And at the same time, because of his leadership, we're seeing less and less fraud than ever, because he knows he has to balance access to the products, to being able to invest, with fraud, so that we don't see people being taken advantage of. That protects the investor: black ones, white ones, red ones, brown ones, yellow ones. It protects them all. That's great news, and you give credit to Jay Clayton in a major way.
Now, Senator, as a former small business owner, you better than anybody can really understand the pain that business owners have been going through with the pandemic. And unfortunately for us, I think it looks like COVID's going to be with us a little longer than we would have all hoped or liked. So what are you hearing from small businesses back home? How are you looking to help them with the pandemic? And particularly, how are you going to try and help the minority business owners that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID?
Some of the statistics that I'm familiar with says that up to 42% of all African American small businesses have closed, somewhere in the 30s for Hispanic businesses. About 22 to 23% of all businesses have been shuttered because of the pandemic. Having enough profit on an annual basis to create a rainy day account that goes for not 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but for 6 months, 7 months and beyond. There are just no businesses essentially that are prepared for that kind of a haul. One of the things that we're doing to help bridge the gap is trying to get a second bite at the Paycheck Protection Program, Apple. That loan that becomes a grant has been key to saving 50 million jobs nationwide. And we're starting to hear more and more businesses going bankrupt because the lingering effects of the pandemic drives them to such a cliff. We're hopeful that with that second bite of the apple that we can save millions of jobs once again. I also think that we have to wrestle with more flexibility on debt. We've been working on that on the banking committee. Mm-hmm. We're going to continue to do so. Those are a few things that I believe that we're going to be able to do. There's certainly a Skinny Heals Act, said differently. Another positive impact on fighting the virus could come in the form of the Senate's latest version of a package that is skinny, comparatively speaking, to the House. They have a 2.4 or more than a $2.5 trillion package. We think that could be painful and hurtful to businesses because you still have to pay that back. So we are doing a skinnier version that focuses on getting the therapies and the treatments to the market. It focuses on having the PPE covered by your Paycheck Protection Program loan. It focuses on having the resources necessary to make sure that your businesses have all the protective gear that allows for you to open your doors and stay open. We've been doing videos from our office, just encouraging people to find the small business of their liking on Small Business Saturday, right after Black Friday. So we continue to look for ways to focus the attention of the consumer on small business, to focus the government on small business, and then to focus our relief packages on small business.
And we want to thank you for your leadership with the PPP program and fighting for small businesses. I mean, this has been a fight that's been going on for months, and your leadership has been invaluable. If you had to handicap it, do you think that we can get a second stimulus bill done before the end of the year?
You know, I think today is Speaker Pelosi's election. It was definitely hard for her to negotiate, as she's been focusing on her reelection as Speaker. That's taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room. With her success, I believe that Leader McConnell, Speaker Pelosi, and President Trump will be able to go back to the drawing board and find a path forward. The question I have is not if we're going to get another package. It's what's going to be in the package and when will it happen. That's really important, and that we don't know yet.
Do you also see Congress turning its eyes towards recovery efforts as well?
Yes, I do. I think we are going to continue to work on recovery efforts. We have a ton of work to do, to be honest with you, as it relates to the pandemic and what the recovery even looks like. The good news is, I'd stage it this way. The work of companies like Regeneron on that monoclonal therapy seems to have had a really positive impact, powerful impact. President Trump was one of the recipients of it, so we know its efficacy has been proven. You look at Pfizer's vaccine that we believe, at least I believe, will see doses of the vaccine out before the end of the year, 90% effectiveness. Compare that to the typical flu vaccine, which I understand is right around 29 to 30% effective. That's a huge leap in the right direction. I would also add on top of that Moderna's vaccine that's around 94 to 95% effective. Those tools coming to bear against this pandemic will only accelerate the recovery. We're also going to see a lot of focus on rebuilding our jobs market, rebuilding margin in companies, and rebuilding the very playing field that businesses play on. What we need in addition to that is a lot of certainty and predictability on the regulatory front. If we do that right, we'll be in a position to see that come to fruition, that we won't have the kind of volatility that sometimes is caused by the divided government. As I said, House is in the hands of the Democrats, Senate, we control the Republicans control the Senate. There's going to be some back and forth, but hopefully that will help us keep a consistency around the regulatory environment. I think those two will be really, really important. And then the long-term recovery packages that we have through the 13-3 facilities will give us a chance to offer low interest loans for the foreseeable future that can be obtained by medium-sized businesses and larger, and will probably come back to the table on the Paycheck Protection Program, which of course the last iteration that we saw from a legislative perspective included not only the loan that becomes a grant, but also a long-term low interest loan, so that we would have more credibility, not credibility, but more margin in the businesses.
And Senator, we appreciate, I know you're squeezing us in between votes, which we really appreciate. And one last question.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us back full circle, but our chamber members are actively addressing the inequities minorities face daily in America, and many of them are actually tuning in today to watch our conversation. As you are heading into a new legislative session, what's your call for action for the private sector when it comes to increasing opportunity for all Americans, and how can those businesses be a good partner for you?
Well, thank you for your willingness to engage on such an important topic for the nation's future. If we don't figure out how to get this right, we will pay the price for a very long time. For small businesses and businesses in general that are interested in partnering on this issue of access to opportunity, I would look to the partnership that was formed between the NFL and Visa that started as something called financial football. We provided that to high schools throughout South Carolina and middle schools. And it was basically taking the Madden football game that kids love and start teaching them financial principles. That was really important. Key, working on diversity within your companies. The one thing I do at my office is we have used the football's Rooney Rule that requires us to take more applicants in and make sure that our applicant pool is as diverse as possible. We don't believe that you have to have affirmative action to diversify your workforce. We actually believe that if you diversify where you get your applicants from, you get a more diverse workforce that reflects the community that you work in. That to me is huge. Also, every major business should have a program to work on the suppliers and the vendors and the diversity within that group as well. And if we do those things, we'll see the flourishing of our human potential, and we'll see the diversifying of our workspaces. And that will only lead to a healthier country, a country that has a singular focus on all of our success. And frankly, it will lead to our significance, which I think is more important than our success. We'll be a more significant country as we all work together, pushing in the same direction.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for your insights. We look forward to working in partnership with you on the opportunity agenda and using entrepreneurship as a tool to end racial inequity. Please join us next month as our series continues on December 11th for a conversation with Representative Gregory Meeks from New York. Congressman Meeks has been an outspoken advocate for policies to free up the resources needed for businesses to get started and to grow. Thank you all and have a happy Thanksgiving.